turn, bitch!
September 30th, 1998. A day I'll never forget. The day Raccoon City fell to the bioweapons released by Umbrella. Hello fellow survivors, and this is Naimad, bringing all of you my thoughts and opinions on the Resident Evil 3 remake. So without wasting too much time, let's dissect this game. Resident Evil 3 is a survival horror game developed and published by Capcom, releasing on April 3rd, 2020 for the platforms PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Later on, the game would get a ray tracing update releasing on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S, alongside a mobile port releasing on iOS, macOS, and the Switch as a cloud port. The game throws the player into a collapsing city of chaos as Raccoon City rapidly falls to the infection swarming the streets. As the undead begin to reanimate around you, a returning character, Jill Valentine, is forced into a life or death scenario where every bullet can mean the difference between life or death. Whilst this nightmare unfolds, Jill Valentine is also pursued by a relentless bioweapon taking out the remainder of the Starved members, the Nemesis. For the sake of survival, Jill is forced into an uneasy alliance with an Umbrella biohazard countermeasure soldier, Carlos Oliveira. Together they must race against the clock and escape Raccoon City before it is evaporated off the face of the earth, and find out the true secrets of Umbrella. With the story summarized, I think it's time I break down what I liked and disliked about this game, and find out if it truly lives up to the original Resident Evil 3, or if it's another failed remake. One quick comment before dissecting this game. I'd like to say that I will not be spoiling any major plot points, so you can still enjoy the story and watch it unfold for the first time, if you haven't yet already. Starting the dissection with the story category, I'd like to point out some positive things immediately. First off, it's a good thing that they mentioned Jill's mansion incident trauma and showed in the beginning of the game that she is still traumatized from her first encounter with the undead experienced in Resident Evil 1. But this plot point is quickly thrown to the side and never really gets developed, but I guess I'm kind of grateful that they at least showed it off, so I give the game a point there. The game also does a good job including a lot of lore notes to build the backstory and help you understand the reason for the creation of some of these bioweapons and exactly what was going on in the world of Raccoon City before the fall. Something else I'd like to point out is all the characters react believably, and it just makes the story feel slightly more immersive. But outside of that, I don't really have any more positive things to say. Moving on to the negatives, I would like to point out that the game relies too heavily on lore notes, and almost all of the backstory is told in these notes, making you miss a large portion of the plot where you won't truly feel fulfilled after completing this game if you're not someone that likes to read notes. And the most glaring issue of all for a remake is the majority of plot points were cut from the original game, making this feel more like a complete reboot instead of a remake of a beloved survival horror classic. Overall, I'd say the story for this game is decent, but not really where it shines. Moving on to the atmosphere, I have a lot more positive things to talk about there. Resident Evil 3 nails the atmosphere perfectly with its RE engine capable of doing ray trace lighting. The ray tracing accents the picture beautifully, creating this realistic lighting while spaces are illuminated accurately, reflections show up where they should, and ultimately builds this atmosphere that feels tense yet looks beautiful at the same time. All the character models are designed with high fidelity, looking realistic and making it believable that you're there, helping immerse you in this world. The highly detailed environments go hand in hand with the game's models, helping to immerse you in this world and tell stories through its environment of what happened to the people living in Raccoon City. Like all Resident Evils, the environmental storytelling continues to stay strong in this remake, where every collapsed shelf, paper, blood splat, and corpse tells a story that you can discover by reading the room. One of the rooms I remember specifically is in the Spencer Memorial Hospital, where you're playing as Carlos. You walk into this room where all the people in there are dead. You can tell that there was a barricade once set up, and that they were trying to survive in this room. There's notes to help explain what happened, but looking at the room you can tell something got in, or someone in there was infected, and everyone was attacked, turned, and killed, painting a picture of how the doctors died in the hospital. The game also uses environmental foreshadowing. One example is also in the hospital. Before the hunters show up, you'll find broken skylights, claw marks on the walls, and decapitated bodies, all pointing signs towards the hunter, which, if you know, is known for cutting your head off with one fatal blow. My only complaint about the game's atmosphere is its reduction in gore compared to its previous installment. The Resident Evil 2 remake utilized a real-time body damage simulation, allowing for chunks of zombies' flesh to break off from the body in real time, and slashes from a knife that look like actual gashes. Where in Resident Evil 3, it's just head explosions and limbs sloshing off, whereas the actual body itself just gets bloodstains, but no 3D damage to the actual model. With that said, I would say the atmosphere in the Resident Evil 3 remake is one of the game's strong suits and captures the feeling of being in Raccoon City during its infamous fall. Moving away from how pretty the game actually looks, it's time to discuss the gameplay. Starting with the positive highlights, literally, important things and notes are highlighted to make it so you don't have to read the entire note in order to solve a puzzle or understand a crafting recipe, which is a good quality of life detail that helps the game be more accessible to players that refuse the read at all cost. Another improvement was the introduction of interactive grabs. So when a zombie or any entity grabs you in this game, you have to spam X to escape their grasp, or it will result in you taking a ton of damage and eventually dying. The thing I like about this is instead of it being a set amount of damage, if you can button mash the X button on PlayStation, A button on Xbox, or spacebar on PC extremely fast, you can escape a grab without taking that much damage. Resident Evil 3 is also significantly more boss fight heavy than the Resident Evil 2 remake. And honestly, this works in this game's favor because all the boss fights are so well designed, all of which for the most part are nemesis, but they function all unique and differently, giving a different mechanic, and kind of feels slightly Souls-like, which is kind of fun. The game does a good job giving the player an arsenal of the desired weapons they might want to use for the situation. In the game, the very first weapon you get is the pistol, which has several upgrades and can become suppressed. There's another variant of it. These are both the Glock. There's the single fire, which is the first variant you get. Then there's the burst fire, which is the second variant you get. Both are just fun ways to use that 9mm ammo. There's also the shotgun, which is one of the more overpowered weapons, capable of instantly killing zombies with a headshot. Ammo is obviously rare for this weapon, but it's really fun to use and just power through everything. The assault rifle takes the place of what's usually an SMG in these games, and once again is really fun to use. You can just mow and cut through zombies. Then there's the Magnum, which is your boss fight overpowered hand cannon of a weapon where when you shoot enemies, it'd be a waste to use it on a normal enemy since it'll obliterate everything in its path. Using it on Nemesis is honestly the intended course of action since it'll cut through those boss fights easily. There's also the grenade launcher, which fits into the class of a heavy-hitting weapon like the Magnum, designed to help take out bosses quickly, but the grenade launcher also has the ability to do crowd control, considering it shoots explosive rounds, which kills a group of enemies, and is overall just a better weapon. While it might do less damage, it has more versatility. The game also has a list of unlockable weapons you can use after completing the main story once. They're all unlocked by spending challenge points, and they give you weapons such as an infinite grenade launcher, a zap gun, unlimited ammo assault rifle, all fun stuff like that that allows you to continue to replay the game and just have fun with it. The game also has rewarding upgrades for the player, consisting of weapon upgrades or inventory upgrades. All the guns either have mag extenders, damage increasements, or even precision upgrades. All of which help make the game easier, make your weapons feel more powerful, and just make the game a lot more fun. Inventory upgrades allow you to carry more than like 2 weapons at a time because you start out with only 8 slots. If you get all the hip pouches, you can have 20 slots, which allows you to carry a lot more items such as puzzle items, ammunition, and weapons when they take up 2 slots in your inventory. Before moving away from equipment, I would like to mention that the grenades and flashbangs in this game are fairly powerful and do a good job at thinning down those larger hordes. The Resident Evil 3 Remake also introduced QTEs during the cutscenes. These QuickTime events help keep the player engaged and honestly will probably deter them from pulling out their phone, otherwise they will die. But if you're pulling out your phone, why are you even playing this game in the first place? Because these games have a good story and they're worth paying attention to, and I'd highly recommend you pay attention, or don't play the game in the first place. Anyways, moving on. Now that I've just talked about every positive thing about the gameplay, it's time to talk about the things that were not executed so well, such as the poorly designed dodge mechanic. In this game, there's a dodge mechanic that acts like a directional parry. The timing is super finicky, and if you're not doing a perfect dodge, the actual dodge is a sidestep, which just gets you grabbed and has your throat eaten out anyways. So, unless you're going for a perfect dodge, it's an absolute dog shit mechanic. Another complaint is Resident Evil has always been known for the puzzles, and I can only recount 3 puzzles in this game. The clock tower puzzle, which wasn't even the clock tower, it was just finding jewels and stuffing them in a box. Then there was the tram system puzzle, which I flew through. That was way too simple. And the only other puzzle in the game would have been finding the stuff for the laboratory or developing the vaccine, none of which can pass as a true puzzle, considering as long as you have a brain the size of a pea, you should be able to solve them. Another semi-major complaint is this seems to be the only Resident Evil remake that has chosen not to allow you to use equipment to escape a grab, but rely solely on spamming the X button, which, considering every other remake does it, it doesn't align as well, and it feels like they just wanted to make this game harder because there's a dodge mechanic that doesn't even work, and they're like, learn our dodge mechanic or die. So yeah, outside of those 3 complaints, that's about all the negatives I have to say about the gameplay. Overall, I'd say the gameplay for this game is fine. Outside of those 3 complaints, it's above average and is kind of fun to play, so not really a major complaint. Moving away from the gameplay, it's time to talk about this game's performance, which, shockingly, this game performs perfectly. You gotta give it to Capcom for all the love and care they put into optimizing these games and ensuring that they run perfectly fine on most hardware. For instance, I was playing this on a RTX 5080 laptop, which I know that's like a top-of-the-line laptop, but I was able to get a constant 60 FPS, only using 67% of the GPU, and this game was being ran on max graphics with ray tracing enabled, which, considering the state of most games nowadays, that's pretty impressive. Not once do I recall the game ever stuttering, and the load times for this game were extremely quick. Granted, I have good hardware, but it's optimized to a level where even if you didn't have top-of-the-line hardware, you could still play this game on max graphics, not be stuck in a loading screen for more than 10 seconds, and have a visually impressive experience still. Shockingly, the performance in this game was perfect, but considering it's Capcom and they have their RE engine, which they designed with love and care, I honestly shouldn't be too surprised. But moving away from the performance, it's time we discuss replay value. The Resident Evil 3 remake is constantly hemorrhaging replay value, making it an easy game to go back to and just replay to have fun, almost like Left 4 Dead. The game does a good job presenting the player with a lot of in-game challenges. By completing, you get challenge points, which you can use in an in-game store to unlock exclusive items to use on replays in the game. Like I touched on earlier, there's a large list of unlockable weapons. Completing the game on higher difficulties unlocks new difficulties. The game rates your playthroughs based off how many times you saved, how much damage you've taken, how many times you opened the item box, and how quickly you got through the game. And it's also a fairly short game. You can speedrun it in 2 hours, which all adds to just making it easy to pick up and play through. Puzzles are easily memorized, allowing you to speedrun them and not creating moments of frustration where you're stepping away from the core game. And the game also just has a lot of collectibles, which gives reasons to replay, search around, find them to unlock more unlockables, which allows you to get more challenge points, which allows you to eventually get everything unlocked, and just run through the game with an unlimited rocket launcher and feel like a total god. With that said, I'd also say this game has flawless replay value, and is definitely worth coming back to after your first playthrough. With all that said, I believe it's time I give my final rating for this game, and see where it lands its score. Overall, the Resident Evil 3 remake does an okay job at telling its story, and has just fine gameplay to pair with it. The atmosphere is impressive, and does a good job at immersing you in the world of Resident Evil, and makes you feel like you're experiencing the Raccoon City outbreak through the eyes of Jill Valentine. The performance allows the game to perform smoothly, no stuttering, and nothing that really breaks your immersion and makes you feel like you're playing a game. And the replay value gives you reasons to keep coming back to this game, even after its first playthrough. Overall, with all of that said, Resident Evil 3 is a great game, earning an 8.3 out of 10 on my scale. I'd highly recommend picking up the game and playing it for yourself if you have not already. With all that said, I think it's time I finally close this chapter on my channel. But don't go yet, for I will be having links to other reviews at the end of this video, and a link to the playlist if you'd like to watch me play through Resident Evil 3. But until next time, I'll see you later. Stay safe out there, y'all.